There you go. So welcome everyone. My name is Courtney. Once again, I'm the education programmer here with BCNPHA. Really excited to have you join us in this session. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that BCNPHA's offices are located on the unceded territories of the traditional Coast Salish peoples of both the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples. But our work does take place amongst over 199 distinct nations across the province of British Columbia. Today, I'm coming to you from the lands of Sauk Nation out on Vancouver Island. Shout out in the chat if we also have other islanders in the group. And also feel free to open up the chat and also say hi and where you're coming from so we can have a little bit of community in this space. Like I mentioned before, the session is being recorded. We'll be sending out a copy of the recording in a few days post to everyone who participated, and we'll also be posting it up on our website for you to view or to share with the rest of your connections. Before we get fully started with our presenters, I'm going to pass it over to my teammate and colleague Shruti, who will kind of give you a little bit of an overview of our Overdose technology funding program.
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. My name is Shruti, and I'm a policy analyst with the BC Nonprofit Housing Association. I'm just here to give you a brief update on what this funding program is about. So BC Housing gave BCNPHA funding to provide eligible supportive housing providers with funds to purchase overdose prevention technology. And so for this program, we partnered with both Lifeguard and Brave Co-op to get the technology out to the sector. The program is most likely going to be launching in January of 2024. That's when the applications are going to open. But in terms of eligibility, all supportive housing providers who have a need for the technology, who are serving tenants with substance use, who have tenants at risk of overdose, are eligible to apply. Those that don't have a BC Housing operating agreement, BC Housing is going to make a decision based on where the need is highest. So we encourage everyone who has a need for the technology to really apply for this program. And currently, this funding is only available for the purchase and the installation of new technology and all associated service costs with it. It's not, right now, it's not available for renewing subscriptions if you already have any existing devices. But in one way, this can be good because we'll be able to get the technology out to more providers across the province, trying to get a greater reach. And that is going to be one of our criteria as well. We're going to try and get the technology out to as many providers across the province, which we don't typically see happen a lot in the smaller and the rural communities. But of course, the priority is going to be where the need is highest again. We'll definitely have more information about the funding early in the new year in January, and within a couple of weeks in January as well, we'll be opening up the program. We will also be sending targeted email to everyone who's out here today in the online learning session and other supportive housing providers when we have more information to share. Yeah, I think that's it about the funding. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. You can just send me a question. I'll pop in my email address as well, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Over to you, Courtney.
Awesome. So at this time, we will also pass it over to Gordon and Leah. Is that correct, Trudy?
Yeah, I think that's right, Courtney. Gordon can with the presentation. Gordon is from Brave. He's the CEO and the founder, and he's here to talk about Brave's technology today and how devices work.
Thanks to you both. Yeah, I'll try to be quick with the presentation so we can have information from Leah and on sort of someone who's on the ground. And just to mention, my colleagues Una and Shona are both here as well. We all have combined all the experience around this stuff, so they would definitely be available to answer questions afterwards as well. And just to mention two things quickly, I'm focusing mostly on the buttons today. I will talk about the buttons and the Brave sensors, which work in washrooms, but I've learned through experience that if I try to explain both of them in the same level of depth, then people conflate the information the one way or the other, and then there's confusion and that's the last thing you want from like an explanatory conversation to try and clarify how things work. So yeah, we are brave. Oh, sorry, let me put it into the full screen mode. Um, So our focus is on overdose detection across the board, and we believe that every overdose death is preventable. Our phraseology around this is overdose detection, and we think this fits into the other things that all of us are working on around overdose prevention and overdose response. And to a certain extent, we think that just using with a buddy at any time is a form of overdose detection, and using in a supervised consumption space is also a form of overdose detection. And what we're trying to bring to the community and to the sort of ecosystem is the technology that can facilitate this kind of thing. And we fundamentally believe as well that this technology should also facilitate connection and involve humans as much as possible, not just tech. And when you are looking at something like this and trying to deal with the challenges that you're facing in your buildings, the choices you sort of have are, cope as best you can with whatever tools you have. You can apply to get an EOPS on site and have a safer use room. And I know that many folks did that before there was anything like an EOPS as a regulatory framework. You can do increased room checks. We know some places that are doing it as frequently as an hour or every 2 hours, to like going around and waking folks up. That's in the States. We've heard of those kinds of things. You can introduce peer witnessing programs, which are amazing, but also like everything else, and including us, limited in scope. Right, there's no magic thing that solves all of the problem. And then technology as an option is, as far as we know, really limited to Brave's options and the lifeguard staff. The framework for us as to sort of what an ideal world would look like for you would be if every overdose that happened on site was reversed. It would be for your staff to feel safe, to feel supported in the work that they're doing in general, but particularly around this issue. It would be for your residents to trust you, to appreciate all the effort that you put into trying to keep them safe, and the different tools and processes and things that you're putting in place. And of course, for all of this to have a minimal burden on you. So notwithstanding that change is always a little bit hard, and there's going to be some change management required when you install these things, sort of post that initial moment of stress or moments of stress or a week or two of integration, things should really feel smooth and natural. Is that a blank screen for all of you? Interesting. So it's meant to say that a little bit about us, and just that Brave is, we're a technology cooperative. We have harm reduction really very much at our core. The folks who work at Brave tend to have some lived experience of substance use, of overdose reversal, in housing, and they bring a lifetime of experience to the work and to the things that we've built. Excuse me, have all been very much informed by the experience of folks on our team and by the experience of people at a couple of different locations where we've engaged deeply with the residents there and with the staff there to try and build systems that truly are appropriate for where they're going. We work with a bunch of people, right? We've learned so much from all of our partnerships and all the different relationships we've had, including our current clients, and we're constantly trying to learn as much as we can, and then the limitation tends to be our ability to actually take action on that based on the resources that we can afford and so on. So our thesis is that the best thing in a situation where somebody's at risk of overdose is to not rely 1000% on the technology, but to pull in actual intelligence, which means a human, as quickly as possible. So all of our systems are designed to alert a human and get them to the scene as quickly as possible so that they can assess what's needed in there. And so what that means then is that we're really talking about sort of person-to-person connection. So as you'll see later, like the button press goes to a phone and it gets a human to come up to that room and knock on the door and see what's going on. And as Shauna can attest, like in the real world, that often means, and that the request was for somebody who is in a moment of not necessarily crisis, but a moment of need. And whether that was because they were using something that put them at risk of overdose or some other need, there's that beautiful human connection that happens there. And that's an opportunity for staff to build trust with the residents. It's an opportunity for them to build trust with the system and ensure that it's catering to their needs and their requirements. And magic happens, and it's the feedback that we get is generally just beautiful and heartwarming in the best of ways. So I'll do a quick walkthrough. The Brave buttons, they don't actually look like that. I have one here. I couldn't find an image that had the current thing, but they're a little bit different. They've got some branding on them, and a prettier color than the white. It's quite simple. Residents will push a button that's inside their room. Every room gets a button, or every room is offered a button, and then the staff will receive a text message saying that saying which room it was that pushed the button and asking for them to attend. You reply okay, and then you have the option to classify what happened. It's not obligatory, but you have that choice, and then we can share the sort of data and reporting on that. And the way the information is flowing is somebody pushes a button that goes to something called the Brave Hub, which looks exactly like that. It looks like a Wi-Fi router. And that hub is connected to all of the buttons in your building, or there might be two hubs, but they're connected to all of the buttons in the building, and they are connected to the internet through a connection that we provide. So it's as soon as you plug it in, it connects up with our servers in the cloud, and then when it receives the signal from the button, it then sends that information up to the cloud. I see there's a text box missing there. The server in the cloud then sends the message to the cell phone, and then that of course will prompt you to respond in person, in real life, and go to the room. So as I said, I'm trying to keep it quick and short, and then I can expand in more detail later. But the Brave sensors are also missing stuff. How fascinating. The Brave sensor is two sensors, one that sits on your door of the washroom and the other that sits on the ceiling of the washroom. And together, those two sensors determine if somebody is in the washroom, and then if they are, they will start to measure time. So you will get what we call a duration alert, telling you that someone has been in the washroom for X minutes, and you tell us how long you want that to be. So we've had it as short as 5 minutes, as long as 22 minutes. It really depends on your situation. And then secondly, if somebody is still inside that washroom, then we'll send you an immediate alert saying you need to go and check on the washroom and make sure that they're okay. Again, how the information flows is the sensor is detecting the stillness or the duration, and that information is analyzed on the sensor itself. So each sensor, there's no hub in this case, the hub is inside the ceiling sensor, and that's determining whether or not it needs to send an alert. It sends a message up to the cloud. The system in the cloud is sending the alert to the phone, and again, you're responding to that and going to the location. There's a chat bot which didn't appear in this slide. Oh, is it there now? Oh, fun. All I needed to do was go backwards and forwards to get things to appear. But there's a chat situation similar to the buttons saying, please go and attend. You type OK, then it asks you if you can classify the situation. In terms of the sort of project planning for something like this might be different, by the way, for this funding stream, because we might have greater visibility into what's happening when, so we might be able to accelerate some of our provisioning, our assembly of the tools. But essentially, take a minute to decide and determine how many you need, and then to sign our contract. I put it down as a week, but obviously that can be turned around in a day or so. And on our side, as soon as we get that information, we'll start working on building the system for you. That takes about 4 weeks. There are some contingencies given the sort of supply chain issues that the world has been facing, which somehow we still haven't resolved since COVID. But on your side, what we recommend, we have loads more detail on this for when you actually get to it, but that you start preparing the location to receive the stuff. And that means chatting with your team, ensuring folks are on board. It definitely means chatting with the residents and explaining to them what's happening and why, and getting them to ask questions and feedback. And if it's done the right way, of course, they are very excited for something like this. And then we recommend things like postering to remind folks of what it is, what it's for, and you need a phone. So there needs to be a phone to receive those text messages. And then I've got here that it takes about a week for us to ship things out to you. And once they're ready, and then installation is something you set up with us for the buttons. It's really plug and play. You plug in that Brave hub, you put the buttons onto the wall, and then you just test them by pushing every button and making sure that a message is coming through. And any issues, of course, we can resolve those relatively quickly. For the sensors, it's a little more involved, but it's a relatively fast process. And we test everything, and then as soon as you're ready, you go live. Once you're confident, and you've probably given folks a notification of when it will be ready. So stick with those things, and then we provide ongoing support for the whole time you've got the system up and running in your building. And in terms of how this has been going so far, we currently have just under 1,000 buttons and sensors live across Canada and the US. To date, we know of at least 188 overdoses that have happened and been responded to. And we're getting this stuff reviewed. We're trying to partner with researchers and academics to validate the efficacy and all of those details. So there's been 5 articles published to date that sort of touch on these things. So of those, this is some feedback we've had from folks, and these are some of the numbers sort of broken down between the different technologies. And then I'm going to try this go forward and go back thing. Yay, it worked. Just a couple of things that come up. Do we need to access to your Wi-Fi? No, we don't. We did that at first, and it was horrible. It worked for the first 2 buildings, and then after that, it got really, really hard. So we changed the entire design of our systems to not require access to Wi-Fi. We provide the connection. From an electricity point of view, the Brave hub for the buttons needs to be plugged in, and the Brave buttons are run on battery power, and we're monitoring that remotely. We'll let you know, but they need to be recharged roughly once a year. Juice calls. This is the nickname that was given to people overusing the buttons, maybe pushing them because they wanted somebody to deliver juice to their room. It's a big concern for staff and for management, but we tend to not see overuse of the buttons. The bigger challenge tends to be engagement, getting folks on board, trusting it, believing that it's going to work, that it's for them, and that it will actually be effective in keeping them safe. And that said, like if folks are overusing the button, the feedback we get is it tends to be people that you would expect to be doing something like that. And so they require no more nor less personal management, one-to-one management than you might require for them just on a day-to-day basis. And support, we're here for you. It's not just technical support if something goes wrong. If you are struggling to get folks engaged, if you are seeing overuse, please reach out to us. That this entire Shauna and Una, especially, like the experience that we can bring to help folks get things working, like in the bigger sense of the picture, to get things working for you. We love doing that. That's really what we're here for, not just the technical. I'm not getting a message from this button, or a button got knocked off the wall, or something like that. And then reporting, we can send you reports as frequently as you need them for your own purposes, but we don't have access to a dashboard, primarily because nobody has really asked for it. So we felt it would be over-engineering the system. That's it. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing, but as I said, I have more stuff in case you want to go into more detail later.
Awesome. Thanks, Gordon. Do folks have any questions for Gordon before we ask some questions of Leah, who works with Covenant House, who is using the Brave technology? You're welcome to pop them in the chat or unmute. I can be your voice.
Maybe we can get started with Leah. Courtney, maybe that will roll out more questions from the housing. Yeah.
For sure. Alrighty. So Leah, we have a couple of questions to get the conversation going. Let me just if anyone could see how many tabs I have open on my computer, it would be embarrassing. All right. So our first question for you, can you share your experiences of using Brave's OD technology devices in your buildings?
Yeah, so we're currently using the devices for 3 different programs. We've got the Brave sensors in our low barrier drop-in space. We've got the sensors as well as the Brave buttons in our harm reduction space. And then we have the sensors in one of our larger programs in all the communal bathrooms. And we've been using Brave sensors now for, I think, going on 3 years. It was after the pandemic that we put them into place. And yeah, it's been going well and has been such an incredible shift for our staff and for the youth that we serve. Doing room checks and wellness checks obviously is something that's part of our practice, but just having that additional safety blanket almost has been a really huge support for our staff and for the people we serve.
Awesome. And oh, I lost my screen again. How long have you been using the devices in your buildings?
Yeah, so it's been about, I think we're coming up on 3 years. I think it was mid 2021 that we put them into place. The original sensors went into our drop-in space. And in our drop-in space, there's always a good number of staff in there, but you never know how busy it's going to be. And so as much as you want to be doing regular bathroom checks, every now and again, you may have too many folks in there to be able to keep an eye on everything. And so having the Brave sensors, sending a message to our team leader's cell phone who's present in the space, kind of indicating like, hey, somebody's been in this washroom for this amount of time. It then just gives you that additional prompt to walk over, knock on the door. If you don't hear anything, then of course you take it into your protocols and all of that stuff.
Awesome. Have the devices helped reverse overdoses in your buildings?
Yeah. So in our drop-in space, we utilize the Brave sensors daily and all day. And I would say we're responding to something at least once a week. In terms of those spaces. In our harm reduction space, this is where we have a 7-bed program where youth are sleeping in individual rooms. And so for this reason, we decided to go along with the Brave buttons as well. And so youth are allowed to be under the influence in this space. They're allowed to be active in their use and all of that stuff. And we try to support them as best we can. But in knowing that and knowing that they're coming back under the influence, we did want to make sure that we had additional measures in place to keep them safe and to make sure that our staff had that additional support to keep them safe. So the Brave sensors are located in all of the single bathrooms within these rooms, but we decided to put the buttons next to the beds because if someone is going to choose to use in their room, chances are they're not going to go to the bathroom where the Brave sensor is located to then use. They're probably going to want to stay in the comfort of their bed. So we tried to make sure that all of our Brave buttons were within arm's reach of where the bed is. So anybody who is getting a little bit fearful of the situation they're in, they can push the button. And I'm happy to say we haven't had any juice calls on our end. So we're pretty lucky there. And then in terms of our larger program, we've got the sensors in all the communal bathrooms on all the shared spaces. So those we have, because it's such a large program, we have a primary phone number that the alert gets texted to, and then we have a backup phone number that it gets texted to as well. So if one team leader is tied up in an incident, then our other team leader for the other program can respond to the situation.
Thank you. Can you share a little bit about your tenants' experience when you first installed the tech within your buildings? Like, was there any pushback? How did you work with the devices to like install it into like living spaces or common spaces without like interrupting their day-to-day life, etc.?
So we had a pretty unique introduction to Brave sensors. So as I noted, they originally went into our drop-in space. So ultimately it was just our staff saying, hey guys, this is now in the space. And the youth had no questions, no concerns about it. They said, yeah, that's that's cool. And then when it came to our larger program, we actually ended up moving into a new building. And so all of the tech was already installed when we moved into the new building. So introducing them and give them tours and orientating them to the new building was how we went about introducing this technology to them, explaining to them what it was, and then also having the Brave buttons located in random places around the building as well, just for ease of access for staff if they ever needed to push a button to indicate to a team leader to help them out.
Right. That was easier than were there any considerations around like staff capacity or training that you had to take into account, or you think that other housing providers would need to take into account?
Honestly, it is such an easy to use system. Once you figure out what timing standards you need for your unique spaces, you figure those out and get them inputted into the system. All of our sensors are at 5 minutes. We just like to be a little extra diligent, and we've got a high staff to youth ratio, so we have the capacity to be able to check on all of those alerts every 5 minutes. But no, it was a pretty quick learn. Everybody kind of just did a quick walkthrough. We said, okay, these are the sensors. This is how they work. These are the buttons. This is what they do. This is how they work. And then we showed them that along with our overdose prevention doors. And yeah, it was all just one quick training.
Leah, I'm just curious, just to build on to what Courtney asked there. Do you have any tenants now, say supposing like the buttons are there in a few units and they're not there in a few units? Because I know like some supportive housing providers are concerned about the fact that not everyone wants to have the technology within their units, and that's completely okay because ultimately the unit belongs to the tenant. Is that a situation that you have at Covenant House?
So ours are program specific based on like where they're located. So for example, in our harm reduction program, because they're individual rooms, and this is not necessarily a tenant situation, they were already installed in the rooms for the purpose of this particular program. But then in our other program, we don't have them in any of the rooms. We only have them in the shared communal bathrooms, for example. So we do kind of make it work based on what each individual program's needs are.
Yeah, I can see that working way better based on what the needs of the tenants are, because your programs are bifurcated that way. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and our larger program has shared bedrooms. So there's 2 youth per room. So there's always that kind of buddy system in place for that as well.
Okay. Any other kinds of just like tidbits or knowledge, Leah, that you can share with the group before we open up to questions from everyone else in the room?
I think they've just been massively helpful for us. I think we always want to go down the road of harm reduction in any kind of service that we're providing to young people. And I think this just helps give us that additional layer of safety and support that we really need in this line of work. And, you know, we can only do so much as humans, and there is human error here and there. And so again, just having this that the youth actually have access to, that they can actually choose to hit that button if they're feeling a little bit nervous. And as you said, it's about relationships as well, and making that connection with a person, and having our team leaders coming in saying, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything from us? What's going on? And reassuring them that someone's actually on the other side of that button has also been a really cool thing. And the next day they'll get up and talk about it and say like, hey, I had to hit my button last night, but so-and-so came right in. They were there within a couple minutes. And I think that also adds just an additional layer of like safety and trust for the folks that we're serving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Seeing lots of nods at that. So
I was just wondering, Leah, if you could tip into like any unforeseen difficulties in setting the thresholds and getting like that work done, because I know that can be really frustrating for some folks during an installation. So if you could speak to a little bit on how the problem solving went, and if you feel like it was sorted out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to try out a few different timing standards just to see what suited us best. In the beginning, we found that we were getting a lot of notifications, so the team leaders brought that to us right away. We reached out to your team to have them have a look at what's happening and why we're getting notifications this frequently. It was quickly addressed and dealt with. I mean, everything that we've asked has been dealt with in such a speedy manner with so much immediacy for us. And yeah, so any small thing that we've run into, it's been quickly resolved, and your team has been awesome in responding.
I didn't mean it as a plug for us, but I but
well,
thank
you
you.
got it anyway.
I appreciate that. So yeah, the threshold, like each setting is so different, and each of the systems are bespoke to each site. And there's different things that are happening inside of that. So in order to connect to your overdose preparedness plan, in the sites, it's not just plug and play as far as setting the thresholds with the sensors. So this can be a little bit daunting an idea for some folks because they've waited for so long to get everything installed. But we cannot encourage people enough to contact us to work with us during that time. It only takes 2 or 3 days for us to set the thresholds to make the system work, where you're not getting a lot of notifications and you're definitely not getting any under notifications. And so that specifically about the sensors, the buttons are a lot more plug and play. They're sort of more concrete in some ways. But the threshold setting is really important piece of work that needs to happen, and it is the sooner that you do it in that first week, then the less amount of headaches that we have later trying to solve unknown problems to us. So just wanted to iterate that.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Una. That's a really great point that you brought up there. Just to build on that, I was curious, is that troubleshooting, those considerations, would that be different based on the size of the provider, the number of units someone is operating within the building or the number of devices that they're going to be using? Would it be different for the size of the providers, the considerations around that?
Not so much, as that each system is sort of inset. So if you had 200 buttons and 4 sensors, your installation process and operationalization process going to be more front loaded. Is going to take more to implement the system on your end. So preparing staffing for that, the benefit of being in a bigger organization usually means you have more support. It's the embedded in the organization. The smaller 1 washroom or 20 buttons, everybody's usually running flat out, so you don't necessarily have operational help. So I would say that's really the main difference, but it doesn't change our level of service. Depending on that, we're here, we want these systems up and working, and I can't tell you the amount of times that a system has been installed and within the hour or within the day there's an overdose that's been reversed as a result of that. And more times than it's yay, got there in the right amount of time. So it just feels important. Never find.
Awesome. And then there was a question in the chat. Binti asked about the coverage area. Gordon, it looks like you typed a response, but if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, just for the recording, I guess the question was what the coverage area is to receive alerts on the phone. And assuming I've understood correctly, so please correct me if I'm wrong, Binti. But we're sending the message to the phone from the cloud. And so theoretically, any phone number, no matter where they are, would receive the alert. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about a scenario wherein we have a 2-story building and staff office would be in 1 floor. So would they be able to receive alert in every floor, like when they are within the site perimeter? That's the question. And so is there any ratio, or suppose if I'm going to install sensors and buttons in every room, like I can say like 20 rooms, so will that be too much, or do we need to maintain any ratio?
No, you can. So we have, I'm trying to think of the biggest building we have. I think it's 108 buttons in every room. And there's no, we use a technology called LoRaWAN, which is not Bluetooth. And one of the reasons is it's longer range. So the LoRa stands for long range. So it's longer range than Bluetooth, but also that doesn't interfere with each other quite so much. Whereas Bluetooth, as you've probably noticed with your own devices, can be quite interfery. And so no limit on the ratio on per floor or anything, and we will send you enough hubs to ensure that all of your buttons are connected. And then usually what happens is we might get one back. Like we send you 4 because we think you might need 4. We ask you to sort of set them up, and when we test them, we say, okay, actually we've got like duplication here. So if you could just package one of them back up, and we'll send you a shipping label and so on.
Okay.
And I can also speak a bit to that. We work across 9 floors here for our youth, and we have never ever run into an issue with that.
Okay. And I hope you will never receive 2 alerts or 3 alerts at the same time.
No.
Another thing is, could you explain a little bit more about the installation?
For the buttons?
Yeah, buttons and sensors.
Yeah, for
What is
sure.
required? What is required?
Yeah, so for the buttons, you really just need to have your phone ready, and we need a place to plug in that hub. So if you were 2 floors, and you'd probably only need 1 hub, and so that would be 1 hub plugged in somewhere where it's safe. So probably in the office, and then each button. See if I can open this up for you. Actually, each button can be screwed into the wall. So it's and then the top reattached to it, and that will ensure that it's secure. Although of course nothing is completely secure, everything can be taken off if you want to. But that's it, and it's time really that you need. You just need some time to put them all into each of the rooms, and then once they're installed, just sort of walk around to each room and just push the button. It should stay blue. It shouldn't be red like mine is going red. And that means if it stays blue, that means it's connected, and then you should see an alert coming up on your phone. So that's buttons, and I'm pausing so that folks can digest the buttons part. The sensors are different. The sensors do need to be connected to power. Each sensor does, and so that usually requires an electrician. An electrician will need to set up some kind of electrical outlet above the ceiling of the washroom, and we have a cable, just like a regular sort of cell phone cable, like this, that this would be plugged into the outlet, and then this part gets plugged into the sensor, and then that's it. Then once that's done, that's connected. That's the point at which you'd get on a call with us, with our technical team, to do the configuration that Una was describing earlier, and we tailor that for every single washroom, because as you know, and as Leah knows in her space as well, like washrooms come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and the sensor is a motion sensor that is looking for different degrees of motion. So if your sensor is right here above my head, then me moving my head this way looks like a certain degree of motion, like it would look like registers big movement. But if that same sensor is like 6 feet above my head, me moving my head the same way is going to register as smaller motion. So we want on our end to set the threshold differently for each of those spaces, so that the same kind of motion is being registered as like motion that's enough for us to not be worried, and then below that threshold is motion that is not sufficient for us to be not concerned. Sorry for all the negatives, but we're looking for stillness, right? And we need to set a threshold below which we consider there to be stillness in that space.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gordon.
If I
Oh. Yeah, go ahead, Pauline. Yeah.
Thank you. How do you support or set this up for northern communities? We're 1,300 k's north of Vancouver. So have you done much of that?
We've done a bit of it. Our first question is always like, what's the cell phone signal like? What's the cellular coverage like at your building?
It's pretty reasonable where we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as there's that, then we're going to be able to receive the signal from your devices, and we can send a signal back to your phones. And like one thing that's sort of hard to clarify or express clearly, because it's not really the way the commercial world works. But you know, if we were to ever ship something to you and we all think it's going to work, and you install it and you test it and it's just not working, and despite all of our best efforts, and this has happened like a couple of times, like literally twice, but like we just send you a shipping label and ask you to send it back. Like we don't want to like trick anybody into having dead technology sitting on their shelf or something ridiculous like that. We're just here to try and help. And it's but no, we one of the reasons as well why we went to the cellular technology is because there tends to be greater cellular coverage in remote communities than there is access to strong enough Wi-Fi and reliable Wi-Fi.
Okay, because I attended, we looked at Lifeguard a while ago, and I believe it's actually pre-COVID. I can't remember. But they said they would send a team up. There was quite a lot of specialty around installing a product. So that seemed quite prohibitive for us because it would involve travel up here. And so you're saying that you actually don't need to do that. It can all be done. Right. Okay. I see it.
It's all done remotely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Another reason we avoided Bluetooth, we did some remote installations for clients in San Francisco during COVID, and we thought that would be not so hard, given the technology choice that we've made. But honestly, it would have been easier if we'd flown down there, but we couldn't. But just because Bluetooth required mapping of the building, and we needed a hub for every 10 buttons, so there was some kind of limit on that. And this new technology we have, I don't want to oversell it, but it's amazing. And really the feedback we've got from folks, because we've shipped it, as I said, all across the US and Canada now, like it really is plug and play. It's quite wonderful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, the remote rollout methodology came from that exact thing. Back in the day, we descended on a building and did all the testing, and we had a lot of problems with the IT and trying to connect, like get past the firewalls in people's Wi-Fi and internet. And it just seemed like, so we took all the feedback back to the drawing board and tried to make something that was a little bit more user-friendly and lightweight in that way. Anne-Marie was asking a question on here. Anne-Marie, are you still there? Asking if sensors can be placed in open areas, but inside a building. Something about overdoses in the guest parking from non-members, and would like to make sure we could use it that way to help a person in need. And then I was like, Anne-Marie, do you have oh, there you are. Okay. 1 second. We got it. Awesome. And we can always circle back to it.
While Andre's getting ready to like ask the question once again, there's like just another question that I want to go back to that's in the chat that's talking about the operational cost. I think Amanda asked that question, and thanks Gordon for putting in the costing over there. We just want to acknowledge that we do realize that building the operational costing of like keeping the overdose detection devices running for a period of time is a challenge for a lot of nonprofit housing providers. So through this program, we are going to be providing the installation plus all the associated costs for a period of 3 years. So we hope that this provides sufficient time for nonprofit housing providers to start baking those 3 years to actually start baking these costs into their operational funding going forward. It's in recognition of that we will be providing like 3 years of any associated servicing costs. I just wanted to bring that up front, but we'll definitely share more details of what that's essentially going to look like when we're closer to releasing the application in the new year.
I really appreciate that. I also wanted to circle to our lovely Shauna, our community liaison, who we have a lot of difference in between buildings, especially well, there you are. A lot of difference between engagement with the buttons, with clients when we have peers and we actually create a engagement program around button facility, especially from the peer level. So we have a lot more success when there are some champions in that space. And I would love for Shauna to talk a little bit about how the process that she went through with different organizations to help them build the capacity and the trust in the system. It's a pretty open-ended question. Shauna, is it okay if I throw you under the bus there?
Absolutely. No. With another program, we went into the beds, and it was all women. And
sorry to interrupt, Shauna.
That's new in the wall.
Shauna, you're so distorted. I'm wondering if you turned your camera off, if you would have better reception and service, because you sound like a robot.
That again.
Let's see.
Okay, how about that? Is that any better?
A little bit better, yeah.
Is this any better? Is this any better at all?
Yes, it's much better. Yeah, 100% better.
Awful. I have such horrible Wi-Fi in the building. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so like I was saying, our pilot project, we went into the Vivian. It was 20 beds, all women, and they have a tendency not to trust anything, especially something that's going on their wall. They have a tendency to think that maybe you're listening to them, watching them, very, very hands off, didn't want it. So what I do is I go in there and I gain their trust. I show it to them. I tell them how it works. I promise them that there is no way are we listening to them or are we watching them? Because I'm a peer also, and I do peer work. They have a tendency to trust me because they know me. And I have a tendency to be able to get onto their level because I've got lived experience, and it's just a matter of gaining the trust and just letting them trust. When we went into the Vivian, there were quite a few of the gals that were not interested in having it in their room, and I can happily say that every single gal by within a month had it in their room. So, and that was.
Thanks, Shauna. That's
just how valuable it was. Am I breaking up again?
You are. I'm so sorry.
That was great, though.
We're all clinging to every single word that you're saying, and how do we make this a success? So yeah, thank you so much for that. That engagement was really important, and whether it is your front desk staff building that report, or if you're able to get any peer supports or champions within the building is foundational to the success of the buttons. There's some really great projects that we have lots of we have lots of research on. So the DOPE project down in San Francisco did a big, beautiful what it takes to engage in a new harm reduction practice, like buttons in their housing facilities, and a lot of really great feedback, and even some education and capacity building tools that go with that. Just want to put that out there.
Thanks both. Anne-Marie, it looks like you have audio now if you wanted to re-ask your question.
Sorry about that. I have to
No worries.
acting up, so I kind of got to do it both ways. The reason why I was asking is I love this program. It's great to hear that this is out. I know that in the members units that'll all be hooked up, but we're across the street. The ministry has just moved across from us, and we've had, and apparently the rumor is they're going to be doing a place where people can get their supplies and everything. But we've had overdoses where they're coming here, hiding at the side of our buildings, and they've come in, and we've had overdoses in the parkade. So I was a little concerned about that, to see if maybe I could hook one up in the office so that I have easy access if I'm having a problem with non-members coming onto the property and doing as they did before. Because I want to make sure they're looked after too. Does that make sense?
I think I'd love to chat with you one-to-one and sort of problem solve this. It sounds like, honest, like, not to
like this from what I'm hearing, that will take care of everybody that's in the building, in their units and everything. But I'm also looking at, because I have this problem here too, to see what I can do to help them when they're on our property. Everything. I just, if it can be used for that as well.
Yeah. So the sensors would not work because they require the door to be open and closed. But like we could put some buttons out there. Like,
yeah.
And if folks want to press a button and know that you're going to be coming and, not running outside with the Narcan, like screaming, but like, it could be like, hey, we need to go check outside. Let's go have a look.
Yeah.
100%. And honestly, like, we've had a couple of folks who wanted to try those at like a pilot like that, because this would be different, right? Most people are not willing to put a $100 sensor button outside, knowing that people might knock it off. But there's ways we can work around that. I'd love to pilot that with you and see if it works.
Take care of that, trust me. But I just want to make sure everybody's looked after and the best of my ability. I live here too, and I work here, so I'm just trying to knock out all possibilities where I can.
Yeah,
but
no, we'd love to do.
Yes, thank you. That was it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Does anyone else in the group have questions for? Oh, Kashmir, I see your hand is raised. Go for it.
Yeah, hi. My name's Cass, and I'm with the Phoenix Society. Just a question for maybe for Leah, I'm not sure, but have you encountered situations where residents who should be making use of the button are hesitant to do that? And if so, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, we had one youth in particular who was quite resistant to it, just because he still carried a great deal of shame around his use and would still try to hide it. So for us, it was about really engaging in those conversations and trying to understand what he needed from us to feel more comfortable to sort of bring down some of those walls. And so it took a lot of relationship building before he actually pushed his button for the first time. Took us a few weeks, but yeah, those transparent conversations and just kind of really just outlining, like, man, like, I don't care if you use or not, I just want to know that you're safe, and repeating that over and over again with him and reiterating that helped us get around it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't sure, like, at the extreme other side of this, I guess you could incentivize people using the buttons, like sort of a Pavlovian situation. But I don't know if any clients of the Brave buttons have gone that far, and if examples.
Yeah, we have a group out in Ottawa right now. They've been running a program for about 6 weeks with pizza, cigarettes, the usual stuff, and just getting folks to do what sort of Shona was talking about as well, like just push the button and see who comes, right? What you're mentioning before, Leah, too, like did it work technologically speaking, and did the human on the other side work, as in did they come to me with a loving and kind demeanor, and only then, like once you've tested that, will you be okay with actually pushing it when you are actually at risk and really need somebody to come up and just be like do the kindest thing. So.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you. And Gordon, I think I owe you a phone call, so I'll be doing that soon.
Anytime, guys. Yeah.
We had some staff changes, so it kind of got dropped, but I haven't forgotten about you, so I'll be in touch. Thank you.
No worries. And also I'll be like Una and myself and hopefully Shona will be at the housing conference in a couple of weeks. So just come and find us we have a booth, so we'll be there, mostly planted, easy to
We'll
find.
see you there. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. Any last questions for Gordon or Leah, Shauna, Una? I'd like to do a long pause for the typing hands. All right, I'm not seeing anything pop up. Happy to be proven wrong. Wanted to give a great big thank you to Leah and Gordon and Una and Shauna for your help in answering questions. If there's any last minute messages you would like to pass over, or Shruti, to our audience, and that will wrap up today's session.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for attending this session. And again, like, you will find more information about the funding program itself at the Housing Central Conference. And as soon as we have more details and we worked out the details of the fund internally, please be on the lookout in January. There'll be multiple communications going out from BC and PHA. So yeah, please, we'll keep you updated as we go along. Thanks so much, Courtney.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Very much.